Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Flux Nest Sports Podcast. As always, I am one of your hosts, Dallas, repping 52 of the Baltimore Ravens, Ray Lewis.
As always, on the other half, Brendan, repping 54, Bobby Wagner of the Seattle Seahawks.
We got a really great episode for you guys today. This is the first official episode outside of football season. Nothing has been played in almost 2 weeks. Starting to feel withdrawal, but we're going to make it. So getting into everything, we're going to talk NBA, NHL. When the WNBA rolls around, we'll talk them. Of course, as always, we will talk Ravens and Seahawks news. But Brent and I are going to use this time also to do a deep dive into one or two teams every week between now and the start of the 2025-2026 NFL season.
Yep.
So, as always, Brendan, let's get into it. What is the breaking news?
All right. A pretty interesting piece of news today. The Jets have informed Aaron Rodgers that they are going to move on from him this year. So he will not be the Jets quarterback in the 2025-2026 NFL season. The move has not been made official yet, so he is still technically a part of the Jets, but it is all but official. He will be released when he can be, and I don't know what the cap hit will be. We'll get more information on that once he's actually released. But the Jets are moving on in a new direction under head coach Aaron Glenn and general manager Moody. So Jets cut Aaron Rodgers.
I mean, look, statistically, he played well. Like, he didn't have terrible stats, but the wins didn't add up. And Aaron Rodgers comes with an extreme amount of baggage.
Yeah.
And off the field drama that I think for a new head coach and a first time head coach.
And a locker room presence.
Yeah, that I wouldn't want to deal with that.
No.
So I'm not surprised. I know when they met with him, he was kind of given an option to stay if he took on a specific role, and he was not willing to do that. But that's just kind of who Aaron is. I'm not shocked by this. Yes, I think he will be on a team next year. Too many teams need quarterbacks.
Yes.
Need backups.
Need a guy.
I think he could be a bridge guy like Kirk Cousins was or something like that.
Yes.
What I'm a little confused by, as the Jets, what's the plan here? You don't have a high enough draft pick.
I think there
aren't a ton of free agency options. What's the plan?
Tyrod Taylor? That's
that's a plan.
On the roster, they have Tyrod Taylor and Jordan Travis. Jordan Travis would technically be a rookie. He was drafted in this draft class, the 2024. But he didn't play at all, coming off an injury. So if you really like him, that's possible.
So once again, I ask, what's the plan? Get it? I have questions. And obviously we're not going to have answers to them just yet, but I got questions.
Again, I think they stick with Tyrod Taylor as at least a backup. Maybe
I'm sure they'll stick with that, but Tyrod Taylor is not a starting quarterback in the NFL. Let's all be honest with ourselves here.
Or they really like Jordan Travis, and maybe they start Tyrod for the first couple weeks to let Travis really get back from that injury, get back into football, and maybe sit for a little bit in the NFL, and then start him. Because Travis was really good coming out of college, but had that really bad injury and fell to the 6th round of the draft because of it. Yeah. He wasn't a super high prospect to begin with, but he wasn't going to be a 6th-round pick without the injury. So maybe that's where their plan is hey, this
We
guy.
liked you. We think you have it. Just need more time.
Maybe
And
they
that's,
sign
I
a bridge
mean,
guy. I don't know.
that's right. We shall see. We shall see.
So yeah, Aaron Rodgers is no longer going to be the Jets quarterback. Who knows where he goes next? Um, and whether he starts again in the NFL. We'll kind of have to wait and see.
I think there's a good potential he will start. I think there's a good potential.
I think there is. I think I can think of 2 teams right now that I think would be a pretty
And when you think about all the teams that need quarterbacks,
yeah.
it's
That's why I was like, I
it's a
think there's
pretty long list.
that's why I think there's 2 teams that are really up there for me in terms of who I think could possibly be in on him. And it would be the Raiders because that quarterback situation is whew, and they're
Yeah,
not don't have a good pick. And then possibly somebody like the Giants, you know, they're desperate for a quarterback. They could take a quarterback in this draft, but we'll see what they want to do. If they want to attack in free agency or they want to draft one. But they need a quarterback. So
yep.
that's where we're at. Um, Aaron Rodgers. Only bit of breaking
Well,
news.
alrighty. Yeah, that does it for breaking news. Moving on to the NBA, who just had their midseason break and their All-Star game.
Yep,
Um,
if you could call it that.
yeah,
Um,
it is technically called that.
they had the All Star weekend. Really is.
They changed how they did that, and nobody's a fan.
Didn't
Nobody at all.
didn't go well.
Um,
Um,
Brendan, you want to kick us off?
yeah. So the NBA just has a problem, a fundamental problem with how they do their All Star, whatever you want to call it, weekend game, whatever.
I'm
And I think it's the same as kind of the NFL, but at least the NFL, the Pro Bowl kind of is meaningless to begin with. Is it's meant to be this like whatever, you've already been eliminated, just go hang out and have fun. It's not meant to be taken seriously. Where the NBA is trying to do kind of the same thing, but wants it to be taken seriously and wants these players to like play as if there's meaning when there clearly isn't to them. Um, I think it's the biggest thing is you see players just not care enough in these games.
yeah.
Victor Wembanyama and Chris Paul were both disqualified from a skills competition because they blatantly just didn't do it. Um, they were supposed to be taking shots from like the 3-point line and then the free throw line. Instead of doing that, they just threw the balls like off the racks to be able to finish quicker. Because you could either shoot, it was like make one. If you make it on the first one, you're done. But then you got 3 attempts, and if you just didn't make it, you could move on. So that like times were quick. But they would just not shoot, so they were disqualified for not even like doing the thing. That's the epitome of the All Star Week for basketball.
Yeah.
It's just this like shit, like just not fun thing. The dunk contest is stupid now. That used to be like the only thing that was worth watching, and even now it's like terrible. And the games are a joke. To be perfectly honest, it should be entertaining. It should be the best players in the league come together, play against each other. It should be this like highly competitive, highly enjoyable, great basketball. But nobody cares, so it turns into watching like this 3-point contest of who can shoot the
Yeah.
furthest, how little defense can we play, that kind of stuff. So
How little effort can we put into it?
yeah, um, so yeah, the NBA All Star Game or an All Star Weekend just sucked. It was just not worth watching at all, especially considering there was a different All Star event going on that was significantly better, like miles better
Yeah.
than the NBA. So
I I mean, you and I have talked about this because I wish the NFL did the Pro Bowl a lot differently. I wish it was like halfway through the off season kind of situation because a lot of guys miss it because they're in too deep in the playoffs or they're coming off of big emotional losses.
you have
And
injuries
so
in
then you
there.
have Drake May being honored with a Pro Bowl
Tyler
because
Huntley
everybody else sat
that
out.
one year. You had that one
Like,
year that had Tyler Huntley as one of
yeah,
the like main ones.
like we don't give a reason for them to play it too early. I'm just not a fan of the way the NFL does it. At least not currently. When they used to do it and it was deeper into the off season, I think you saw more of the best of the best
Yeah,
um, come together and just have a good time. It didn't have to be this overtly serious competition, but you saw more effort.
yeah,
And I think with the NBA, there isn't like nobody sits out, but it's also gone from what used to be a competitive game to a joke nobody takes seriously.
yeah. Um, and really the fix is the players. It's the players' choice to try. Um, and they're just choosing not to. You can say that's on the players. That's fine. But also, technically, this is intended to be their like rest for the season.
Yeah,
For seasons like the NHL, the NBA, stuff like that that are really long and you're playing a lot of games, the All Star break is really meant to be like a
meant to
break.
be like a week off. NFL, like they all get a bye week.
Yeah. So
Like that's the difference.
for these guys, it is meant to be a break, but I still think there needs to be more effort put into it. Some sort of stakes that
Yeah,
make it better, I guess. But, you know, the NBA is still struggling for viewership, and it's kind of easy to see why when you're All Star game and,
is a joke.
yeah, something
Well, and
that
I
should
think
be.
a big commentary on the on the NBA right now is superstars don't play a lot of games anyway. Like a lot of them take more rest days than they used to. Um,
Yes.
a lot don't play back to back a whole ton, things like that. And so when you're seeing kind of that lack of effort anyway from superstars when superstars drive basketball, and then you have this game that's supposed to be pretty much nothing but superstars, and they don't show up and show out. As a viewer of basketball, why would I waste my time?
Yeah. Yeah. That's fair.
Like,
I do think one of the like best things, like best arguments, was from PK Subban, who is not a basketball analyst. He's a hockey analyst. I'm going to preface that so that people understand that he's not a professional in this realm.
yeah,
But he did bring up pretty much the same points of like the NBA is just not trying, and he was kind of saying like we didn't see this problem when Jordan played, when Kobe played, because they were always on the court and they always had the competitive drive. They were always
yeah,
going to play their best because they knew people came to watch them. It's that thought of we don't want to miss games because people are spending hundreds of dollars to come see us play. We want to make it worth it. I just don't think we're seeing that in the NBA currently in
yeah.
terms of people are spending the money, but we're not seeing the stars every week go out there and play like stars or even go out there at all.
Yeah.
Um, you know,
I mean, that's like we're from Denver. And if we went out to Denver and we were like, you know what, there's a Nuggets game and we could spend some real money and go watch the Nuggets and show up and Jokic is like, I'm not doing this today. Be like,
yeah,
fuck, did I spend my money on that? Like I came to watch Jokic.
it would be like going to a Lakers game and
And LeBron
LeBron
being like,
and Doncic both just decide
nah, I'm good.
not today.
Like, it's just not. I think the same effort isn't put in. And I think especially in league, it's one of the only leagues that is genuinely superstar driven.
Yes.
Like, now don't get me wrong, okay? Like the final week of the season, hey, you're not playing your starters a whole ton, depending on the stakes for your team. You pretty much know that. But it's not a random draw of the hat of if I buy a Ravens ticket, I know I'm going to see Lamar.
Unless
Like,
he got hurt.
unless he's hurt. Like, not because he just didn't feel like it.
Whereas like NBA, you have not to like take shots, but I'm going to. You have
We're
players like
taking shots. That's what we're doing.
Joel Embiid is the most
Oh
notorious
my
for this.
god.
He is not because we talked about being from Denver and being a Nuggets fan.
Mm-hmm.
The last time Joel Embiid played in Denver against the Nuggets was when Tom Brady was still in the league. And not just still in the league, he was still, I think, a New England Patriot.
So,
It's been like 5 years.
yeah.
Like, it's been a while since Joel Embiid has stepped on the court in Denver. That can't happen. That is when he won an MVP. I'm not going to take that away from him. Disagree with it. He won the MVP. He's a superstar in basketball. You would expect him to show up and play games because people are coming to see him play.
Yeah.
And he has missed more games than pretty much anybody in the NBA. It's to a point where since he's been in the NBA, he's nearly missed more games than he's played. So yeah, you would expect that kind of player to show up.
Yeah.
For most games. Like obviously, if you're hurt, you're hurt. Depending on the injury, I say you should probably be able to play through it, but I'm not going to question it. If you're hurt, you're hurt.
Yeah.
Sit down. Take a break. It's when players have maintenance days. That's what they call it. I'm like, that. Really? Like, really? And you tend to see it less with certain, like, there are players in the league that don't have that problem. But none of them are your, like, superstars. Like,
Well, and
LeBron tends to not, and I'll give him
like,
credit.
okay, if LeBron takes a maintenance day once every like 6 games at an away game, the man's 40 years old.
Yeah.
Like, okay, it's an
He,
80 plus game season. I get it.
but he tends to be one of the ones that doesn't.
Yeah. But when you are in your prime and you publicly announce that you're not going to play back to backs anymore, so you can have your rest days, bitch, get on the court. You are a professional athlete
Yes.
making millions of dollars, working class people paying their hard earned money to come see you play. Maybe the one time or the one game they get to go to a year, and you didn't play because you're tired? What?
Like, and that's my point, is you have players in the past that didn't matter. They would still show up and play. And you have
Yeah,
players today, I'm not going to say there
I
aren't.
do that.
Like LeBron, I give a ton of credit. He will go out there and he doesn't take a ton of maintenance days. And he's 40 years old. Like, respect. You're putting your body out there. You have players like Jokic, who don't take maintenance days unless he's hurt. And that's pretty much it. I will say he did take a couple games off because his son was born.
But I mean, we can respect that. Like, we can.
But yeah,
I can respect that.
he took like 2 games off. They were away games. I don't think it matters. But it's the Joel Embiids, the
Yeah.
I'm gonna be honest, Joel Embiid is the only one coming to mind right now. There are more, and I
Yeah,
cannot think of
but
them.
it's this concept,
Um,
and I just think it's what's hurt NBA viewership, and it's definitely what hurt the All-Star weekend was the lack of effort.
yeah. So
Now I get not liking the new format, but at the end of the day, this is what it is. So either put in the effort or sit down.
yeah,
But
like
then don't bitch when the NFL is more popular on Christmas Day.
or when hockey dominates you in terms of their All Star weekend.
Yeah, because it did.
It flat out. It wasn't even close. Like we can talk about it now
Yeah, let's
because
move on. Let's talk
let's
the
talk about
NHL.
let's talk about a league that's doing it right. Because the
Um,
NHL, I think, exceeded what a All Star game should or an All Star event
should be.
should look like. Because I can't say game because it's not really a
There's
game.
multiple games, so several.
Yeah,
Um,
because if
it's not done.
for those of you that don't know, the NHL, instead of doing a traditional All Star weekend, changed it to a international tournament of only NHL players, like people in the NHL, can participate in a 4 nation tournament between the United States, Canada, Sweden, and Finland.
And for those confused, those are the four main demographics that make up the NHL.
Technically, they did miss one, but there are other
Well,
reasons that didn't happen.
yeah, those are the four main that people are going to acknowledge.
Yes, when technically the top 3 includes somebody else,
Yes,
but for other reasons they were not included.
it's this four.
So yeah, top 4 in the NHL, and it's been great. The first 2 games were so the first week or the first 2 games were United States versus Finland and Sweden versus Canada. Or no, yes, I
Yeah,
was right.
yeah.
United States versus Finland ended 6-1 in the favor of the United States. You might think that is a blowout, and it was. Finland scored the first goal of the game, and the game was close until the third period. And then the United States decided enough playing around. We're better. We're going to prove it. And they did. But it was still a close, good game until the third period. It was a 2-1 game going into the third period in favor of the United States.
And
Obviously,
then I believe the U.S. had 2 empty net goals.
I believe you're correct. They at least had one.
Oh, sometimes the score seems a little more lopsided than it really
But in
was.
reality, the United States still dominated the game.
Yeah, absolutely.
Canada, who
Absolutely.
should be the best team on paper, versus Sweden, one of the weaker teams on paper, went to overtime. Canada did win in overtime, but the game went to overtime. I will say I'm not sure how I feel about 10-minute overtimes. Um, it's a little long for an overtime. Kind of feel bad for the guys, especially when it's 3-on-3 and there's a lot more space, so there's a lot more skating.
Yeah.
Gets a little tiring. Do feel for the players. They've made their opinions clear. We'll see what the NHL does. I doubt they'll continue doing that. They'll probably stick to what they're doing in 5 minutes for like actual play.
Yeah.
but two good games to start out the tournament. The next,
Two great games, honestly. Like, I
yeah,
know Canada and Finland was lopsided. Finland definitely came into this situation
as the underdog.
as the underdog between the four of them. Obviously Canada and the US are usually heavy favorites.
Yeah.
But you still get to see some of the best representing Finland, and just these guys going out there playing really hard, giving it their all.
Yeah, it's not like,
And
again, Finland went out there and scored the first goal
kept close,
and
like,
was in it
until
for
the very end.
most of the game.
So it was a great game.
The next two games were between technically Finland and Sweden are rivals, and then United States or Canada are rivals. So there was
Rivals.
like a rivalry day where Finland played Sweden. That game ended 4-3 in favor of Finland in overtime. So another overtime game, another great game.
Yes.
Back and forth, both teams played incredibly well, and that was
Rantanen got his first goal
yep.
of the weekend, and his first goal since leaving the Avs, I believe,
It's I
in that
believe
game.
his second because he did
I thought
score
they
one
announced
with
just the
Carolina.
first.
He did score
Oh,
one with Carolina. He has not been great
okay.
with Carolina, but he did score one.
Here's my thing. I had a thing about that. I was thinking about that. Having to go from the Avs to Carolina to this, like, like you're just trying to find a groove with the new people you're skating with. Like, he's been skating with the same line for a long time,
Yeah,
and
he's been skating in the
to
same system for a long time, and they're two
to
very
keep
different
making
systems.
those changes, I think can be difficult.
Because we can talk about that trade later, um, because I do
We
have an
talked about it. They
opinion.
know about it.
No, I mean like
Did it?
the aftermath and what's happening
Oh,
now, because it is kind of an interesting thing. We can talk about that later.
okay.
Um, and that wasn't even the best game of the day,
No, no, it
because
was not. It
United States versus Canada came out and went.
was a bloodbath.
So, to for starters, Canada talked a lot of shit. Canada was talking shit. They booed the American national anthem. I'm not going to say much on that. They did it.
Yeah.
This was played in Montreal, Canada. So, technically, Canada was the home team. The puck drops, and immediately there was a fight. The United States did not enjoy Canada's fans booing their anthem.
Yeah.
I think that's
That's fair.
pretty
It's fair.
fair
It's a fair reason to fight.
to sit there and go, nah, we're not doing
We're
this.
gonna do this.
Um,
And
for reference, the first fight was Matthew Tkachuk versus Brandon Hagel. So that fight ends. They go to the box. The next time the puck drops, another
another
fight.
fight.
This time it was Brady Tkachuk. And if that last name sounds familiar, it's because they're brothers.
Yeah.
And if you've ever seen the movie The Mighty Ducks, and there's the two Bash Bros in that movie, or whatever they're called in the movie, that's who they are. They're going to
Yeah.
fight, and they're going to hit you, and they're going to just be annoying. That is who the
Yep.
Kachucks are. So two fights in the first like 5 seconds. That fight ends. Everyone goes to the box. 4 seconds later,
Hawk drops
another
in.
fight.
And fight number 3.
So that's three fights in the first 10 seconds of the game.
I think it was 9. I think it was
9 seconds. Oh, yeah. First 9 seconds of the game, three fights. This game started off. These teams hate each other. Three fights, 9 seconds. And this is the All Star break, mind you.
yeah.
It's this is not supposed to be a we're throwing hands. God forbid we get hurt. Nah, we don't care.
Yeah, no. NHL players come to play. You put them on the ice, they
They
go on
came to
all
play.
out.
Canada started scoring. McDavid scored. for Canada to start. And then United States went, and it's ours now.
Yeah.
They ended up winning 3-1. That third goal was an empty net goal. So really, if you want to think about it,
3-1, but
2-1. So
final score was 3-1.
fantastic game. Lots of physicality, lots of just pride in the
Yeah.
game. So the United States, with that win, punched their ticket to technically the final. They did not have to do anything after that, but they punched their ticket to the final with that game. So then it really came down to whoever of the other teams won would make it to the final with them. So that brings us to the third week, in which Canada and Finland played, and America and Sweden and America played. Canada needed to win in regulation to make it to the finals. But pretty much whoever won in regulation was going to the finals between Canada and Finland. And then if they didn't win in regulation and Sweden won, Sweden went. So Canada Finland came out and was another fantastic game. The game ended 5-3, with the last goal being another empty net goal. And for reference, Canada was up, I believe, 4-0 at one point.
Mm-hmm.
Finland
And
fought all the way back to 4-3.
they did it with like a minute and a half left. They pulled their goalie and were 6-on-5 for a good 50 seconds and were able to get 2 goals in until
An empty netter.
Yeah, Canada stripped and was able to get one into the empty net. But it was a great finish.
So another
I had pretty much given up.
great game. With that, Canada punched their ticket to the finale against the United States. So take that in mind. The United States wasn't really playing anything for the game against Sweden. Sweden beat them 2-1. Pretty solid game. Neither team had anything to play for it, but they still went out there
They
and
went
played a
out
good
there,
game.
they played. It wasn't extremely exciting, but it wasn't very boring. It was just a solid
It was a game.
game of hockey.
It was a good game of hockey.
And it was 1-1 for the majority of it. I think Sweden's second goal came in the second, I think. If I remember right. And the US just was never able to get it back, but it was a good game. Hockey is just everybody comes to play all the time. And you can be down 4-0 and never seriously be out.
Yeah. So it was just an incredible couple of days. And it's not done yet, because on Thursday, the finale between Canada and the United States is scheduled for 5 o'clock Pacific, so 8 Eastern. Should be an incredible game. It's going to be a great rematch between the two teams. Expect probably a fight or two.
Yeah.
Expect just a fantastic game. I would imagine both teams come out trying to destroy the other one.
I believe the refs will have a conversation prior to puck drop to be like, look, can we just not? Can we just? Let's not.
To which the
and sometimes that works, and a lot of times
to which my
it
guess
doesn't.
is the Kachuk brothers both tell the ref to shove it.
Go fuck themselves.
Yeah.
That was a fun, kind of heartwarming story of the weekend, though. It was the first time those two brothers had played together.
Yeah.
In the NHL. So it was exciting to see. Yeah, it was a great set of games, all of them, and definitely excited for Thursday. I was a little surprised because Canada on paper should be the juggernaut. That's like impossible to deal with. And
yeah,
for the US to kind of roll the way they did surprised me. So we'll see if Canada kind of comes back with a vengeance and can take the championship or just kind of what happens there.
Yeah, it should be great, as I said. Neither team are favored in the games, which should just be
No.
an all-out brawl, and I'm here for it. So Thursday, if you've never watched hockey and you don't like
This is the game
hockey,
to watch. This is the game.
yeah, if you've never watched hockey and you don't know if you like hockey, watch this game. Just do yourself a favor, watch this game. You won't regret it. I promise. You'll see what hockey is about when watching this game. This isn't going to be like the NBA All Stars.
They care.
The best players
They
in the
care a
world
lot.
are playing in this game, and they care. So, should be great. Should be a fantastic game. I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully
Very
something.
excited. All right. Well, I think that concludes the NHL for now.
Yeah.
Moving on to football. As always, we will start with Ravens and Seahawks news. So I will kick it off, and then we'll kick it to Brendan. So starting, the Ravens have hired Anthony Levine as an assistant special teams coach. He played for the Ravens between 2012 and 2021. He's been an assistant special teams coach for the Titans. So, the Ravens are really big about kind of bringing players home and kind of continuing that culture. So it'd be great to see him back in purple and black. I never
Nice.
have a ton of questions about special teams, so we'll see how I feel about that next year, because there have been more problems. More women came forward and accused Tucker. Look, it's still speculation and rumor. I don't know the inner workings of the investigation. I don't know what's being unfolded. What I know is when Deshaun was in the mix, the Ravens made it very clear that they have a zero tolerance policy, and they have no room and they will make no room for people like that on their team. So I hope that as this moves forward, the Ravens will respond accordingly, if that's what comes to light. So that's the best I can say. I don't know the situation. I'm not going to comment or speculate on it. I'm going to let the investigation play out. But I'm really hoping the Ravens don't let me down in this situation. But I will say they are a firm culture team. And that's a big part of why they are my team. So we shall see. On other news, Ben Cleveland, the guard, right guard, left guard, was arrested for a DUI. So Ravens players are having the Chiefs off season from last year, and I'm not enjoying it. I'm not appreciating it. Look, DUIs are not okay. You make a lot of money, call an Uber. That tends to be something most teams simply move on with. Like, if you go to court, if nobody got hurt, tend to make sure you don't need help, and they move on. That's kind of what I expect here. I'm not saying that's the right or wrong answer, but if every player that got a DUI was
Kicked
cut
off the
from the
team.
league, then nobody would play in the NFL. So,
Pretty much.
except quarterbacks, because they tend to rarely get those.
Yeah, that is actually a fact.
There would definitely not be any running backs in the league. That seems to be a high. So yeah, that kind of does it for Ravens news. hopefully it gets more positive here soon. Yeah. Hopefully we can stop talking about the scandals and just
maybe just stop talking about them. That tends to be the best. Is if you can have a quiet, just nothing off season.
Here's the thing. That's what they usually do. This year, I'm not sure why we're fucking with it.
Well, I guess moving on to the Seahawks, who are not technically having a quiet off season, but they're not like the Ravens. They did make some hirings. That's pretty much all we're going to talk about. They hired John Benton as their offensive line coach. This hire was made pretty much right after Clint Kubiak, so like 2 weeks ago, but they're just now kind of releasing names. Andrew Janoko as their quarterbacks coach. Both of these guys have played or have coached with Clint Kubiak prior. So two guys I know him. Both were on the New Orleans staff with him. So two more guys added to the list there. Today they announced the hirings of Rick Dennison as the run game coordinator, run game like specialist. No, run game coordinator, and then Justin Outen as the run game specialist. So two more guys in the building as like run game line coaches, stuff like that. And then plus one more in Michael Byrne. I think it's Byrne.
Some version of this name.
Yeah. Michael Byrne.
You turn the N into a D. Like, I feel like you just abandoned all
I did not say
options.
bird.
It sounded
No,
like
I realized when I said Bryn that I read the R before the Y the first time. Because it is, I believe, Burn. Byrne.
Brine?
No, Byrne.
Oh. Yeah, then Burn.
I would guess. Unless it's Bayern.
Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, Michael Byrne. If I pronounced that name wrong, I'm sorry. He's an offensive assistant. Don't really know what his job is, but he's there. With that, they did keep some guys on the coaching staff. They did keep Kennedy Palomalu as the running backs coach and Jake Peets as the pass game coordinator. They probably kept some other people that are like really low down there and like other assistants maybe, or they're just not releasing that they have been let go. But so far that is the hirings. So it seems like that staff is mostly put together at this point. So the offense should be set up. The defense had no changes. So coaching staff is set, ready to go for the combine, draft, and free agency. So all good in Seattle right now with coaching, and pretty much that's it. No other shit is happening.
No other news.
So they're being quiet other than hiring people, which is all good.
That's how you want it. That's how you want it in the off season. It is for them to be off. Quiet. Shh. Quiet like a mouse.
So that's where we're at. The Seahawks are getting set up for the season. So
nice. Well, like I mentioned at the beginning of this episode, we are going to start kind of breaking down 1 to 2 teams per week. We got to do the exact math and figure out what weeks we need to do 2 teams between now and the start of the NFL season. We are going to start in the NFC North, and we're going to start with the Detroit Lions. So that is our team of the week, breaking down some things they've done, their season, coaching changes, kind of what we expect to see from them next season.
Yep, going forward.
So obviously, we all know they lost both their offensive coordinator and their defensive coordinator, both getting
Mm-hmm.
head coaching jobs. So congratulations to them. That happens to really good teams. You lose those
Yeah,
players, or those pieces. Um, we've talked a lot about the Lions, just kind of offhandedly, but to see what they've done over the last 3 years and what Campbell has turned them into, I think has been one of the most impressive,
turnarounds.
but also like heartwarming like turnarounds in sports. Like the Lions have been a joke for the better part of 30 years. And to be a genuine contender has been impressive to watch.
Really impressive.
Like, and they have a very defined culture. So often when a team is a train wreck,
They're just a
they
train
can't get
wreck.
a culture. And they have a very clear cut, this is who we are, and this is how we present ourselves. And I have a ton of respect for it.
Mm-hmm.
They did hire off new offensive and defensive coordinators.
Yep.
So their new offensive coordinator, John Morton. He was the Broncos' past game coordinator last year. He was with the Lions the year before as an offensive assistant. There's a lot of coaching experience in terms of coordinators and assistant positions. He's been an offensive coordinator for the Jets, um, all kinds of things. So a lot of experience there.
Yeah.
Um, Defensive coordinator, they promoted Kevin Shepard. He, of course, aligned with Dan Campbell's, philosophy. Was a player, and then an outside linebackers coach for the Lions, linebackers coach for the Lions, and now defensive coordinator for the Lions. So, and just to be clear, Morton was also a player in the NFL. That's a big thing for Campbell. Is players, coaches.
Yes.
They tend to understand players really well, relate to them really well, and that's just a mentality he has,
Be
especially as a former player.
be a player's coach. So
So,
yeah, some pretty solid hires, hopefully, for the Detroit Lions. Obviously, replacing your defensive and offensive coordinators in the same is not great. Thankfully
no,
for the Lions, their season went pretty well. Obviously, they have a shit ton of talent on that team. They used to have Jared Goff, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Aiden Hutchinson, lots of great talent. So for them, still great. Still have Dan Campbell at the helm, so that's good, and still have Brad Holmes at GM. So still got that culture, and you still got the core to build around. Um, Obviously, this season did not go how they wanted it to, missing out on the Super Bowl and getting eliminated pretty early by their standards before the
yeah,
conference against the Washington Commanders. Part of the reason is they were just injury riddled. So many injuries on that team. Um, like half the defense was backups.
yeah,
A lot of the stars on defense, as I said, were hurt. Some of the offensive guys were hurt. So overall, just a unfortunate season for the Lions. Going into next year, though, they should be pretty well set. They're looking at roughly $44 million in cap. That could be pushed to 45 pretty easily. And then that is just a projection because we don't know the new cap numbers quite yet for the NFL. So
yeah.
that number could easily increase. It could also possibly decrease. That is highly unlikely.
It's not likely,
Um,
but it's possible.
it is a possibility. So that number should probably go up. So they should be pretty solid in terms of cap space to make some moves, bring in some more vets. maybe some guys, re-sign some key people. It does not look like they have a ton of expiring contracts, which is also really good for them. Um, so they shouldn't have to re-sign a ton of people. Um, None of their key guys are up yet, so good for the Lions there. Their core is still in place. Not a ton of people to resign, and a good amount of cap space. That all leads to good things. So yeah, the Lions are looking at a good amount of cap space, not a ton of re-signs. Their core still in place. Should be the makings of a pretty solid offseason. Get some key contributors in there. Maybe re-sign a couple of the guys that you might be losing, and then the draft. They do have their first round pick that is in the 20s, I believe. I don't know their exact pick. Um, so should get a solid player, not somebody that's going to probably really elevate
Make
them,
a massive impact.
but is going to be a pretty solid all around player for them. Um, so obviously, Detroit coming off
Yeah.
not their best season, but in terms of playoffs, but their best season in franchise history in terms of wins. Um, are kind of going into the season trying to get better. They should be able to. And next year, I could really see them making a real push for the Super Bowl. I
Yeah.
think they'll be a contender, and they'll be a contender for years to come if they keep drafting right and keep this culture and this core together.
Yeah, I mean, they're a great team. They're a they're a powerful team. Um, just the standard they've set for themselves. I think they could easily be vying for the number one seed in the NFC.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I could also see them taking a step back, changing offensive and defensive coordinators. For a team is really difficult.
Absolutely.
And I like Goff a lot, and I like his story. And I think his story matches kind of Detroit.
But
I'm just not sure that you can win a Super Bowl with him.
yeah, um,
Um, and he is a quarterback that when he has a bad day,
it's a
it's a
bad
train wreck.
day. We kind of saw that with the Washington Commanders game in the playoffs.
I mean, you saw it with the Texans game, but the Lions defense was able to overcome it. In the Washington game, because their defense was as depleted as it was, they weren't able to overcome those mistakes. And that is just something he has a problem with. So I think they're a good team. And if they take a step back, I think they're still a good team. But I could very much see a potential regression.
Absolutely. So yeah, I still think they'll be contenders this coming season.
Yeah.
But obviously with replacing your DC and OC in the same year, there's a lot more room for slips. Especially considering the NFC is only getting stronger right now. When you have teams like the Commanders who just did what they did with a young core and a young quarterback. Obviously, you have the Eagles who just won the Super Bowl, still with a young core, and they still have Jalen Hurts. And you kind of saw what the Vikings did, challenging the Lions all the way through the season for that number one seed in the NFC and number one seed in the NFC North. Then you also got some other teams in the NFC that are all kind of right there. So yeah, NFC is only getting stronger. So I can see maybe the Lions slipping a little bit. but I still think they're good enough to really be a solidified contender.
I agree. I think they have so much talent, and when you have talent and a culture, I think you're kind of always a contender.
Yeah,
Um, Especially when your head coach has standards. Um, I'm not going to name names, but there are other teams in the NFL that have a culture and talent, but a pretty low standard. So when you kind of have those three things, I think you're a contender. And I think the Lions are that. I just I could see them either fighting for the number 1 seed or simply fighting for their division.
yeah. But yeah, so the line should be set up for next year.
Yeah,
We will definitely keep a close eye on all teams. Obviously, we said we're going to do this for every team in the league,
every
um, once a week throughout the rest of the offseason and leading up to the season. So if you like that,
and
let us know.
next week we will probably talk Minnesota
Yeah,
and all of the fun decisions they have to make and kind of our thoughts and what we would do.
yep. So for the Lions, this one was kind of easier, considering they
Yeah.
have pretty much everything set up and ready to go for next year. For teams like Minnesota, we'll definitely get more in depth, talk a little bit more about the intricate decisions they might have to make. But yeah, as I said, um, let us know if you like this idea. Um, Obviously, we'll cover every team, but the order can still kind of be switched around. If you want to see
Yeah.
your team earlier, let us know. We'd be happy to shifting things around, bring a team up. There's no real
Heck
like
yeah. We're
order.
flying by the seat of our pants here. We're a chill podcast. So we're just doing what we do.
Yeah, there's no real order. So if you guys want to see one quicker, let us know.
Let us know. And keep watching. We got some fun things that we're gonna do as the off season progresses,
Yeah,
and
we got some
some
fun
fun
plans.
things for next season, and obviously as the NBA and NHL come back from their breaks, we'll talk about them. March Madness coming up, all kinds of fun stuff coming.
Yeah. So yeah,
So
should be great. Um, Obviously without football, main thing kind of
might
going
be a
away.
little shorter.
But
Might be a little.
But yeah, if you love hockey, if you love basketball, we'll continue to talk that. Obviously, might not be as much to talk about on a week to week basis, but we'll still bring you some stuff with that. And then yeah, once March
Okay.
Madness kicks off, we will definitely dive right into that because that is a fantastic tournament, really fun to watch. So
Hells yeah.
that's coming up. So that's kind of the
Nice.
plan for kind of the future. We still got some more things that we're not sharing right now,
Yeah.
for the plans, but that's kind of the near future
That's the near
plan.
future. That's the immediate future.
Well, all that being said, um, I think that does it for us this week. So thank y'all for joining us again. Make sure like, subscribe, comment, as we said. Let us know. Let us know. Um,
Yeah.
and then yeah, make sure to leave a like. Really does help get us out there into the algorithm. Can't say that enough. So thank y'all. This has been Floss Next Podcast. I've been Brendan.
And I've been Dallas.
Thank y'all.